What's going on, guys? I have been wanting to do this for a little while, decided to finally get my shit together and put it together. And one of the things I've been wanting to do with this channel and to start putting out more stuff is kind of Q&A and being able to take some questions, answer them in a little bit of a longer format, kind of go into depth with speaking, just because I'm a significantly better speaker than I am a writer. So I really find it difficult to answer people through DMs or on Biggerpockets or on YouTube in the comment section, emails, things of that nature. So what I'm planning on doing for now is probably just once a week, creating a video, pulling out 3 questions, maybe 5. I picked 3 for tonight, doing a quick 10, 15, 20-minute recording, kind of answer those questions and continue to do it. If we get up to a couple times a week, daily, we'll see how it goes and kind of see how it takes off from there. What I'm planning on doing is reading the question, but I'm also going to try to put it right here so you guys can see the question while I'm reading along and just go from there. The first question is they're all from Biggerpockets, but from Biggerpockets. I'm a passive investor and only participate in a handful of deals, so my question may be uninformed or basic, but I've been pitched by various people calling themselves syndicators, but I find their supposed deals are just repackaged deals from other true syndicators who actually acquire, manage, and dispose the asset. Is there any reason to invest with these people rather than just investing directly through the real operator? I find the way they present themselves to be disingenuous when they're really just middlemen getting a cut of the GP's shares to handle raising capital and investor relations. I also don't find any improvement in terms on the fees assessed or on the waterfall promote on the back end. If anything, I find that there are more fees assessed going through the PPMs. Please educate me on why anyone would do this unless you were just informed. That's probably a typo. But the basic question boils down to is, who are these people that are raising money? What's the story behind it? How does it work? The answer is it really depends on the group or the person you're talking to. In the last couple of years, we've seen a rise in the number of people going out and raising money for their own multifamily deals, as well as either raising it for other people as well as their own, or just raising it for other people's deals. There's plenty of people out there who don't actually really go out and acquire any properties of their own, or very few. So what their job is to meet investors, create an investor database, and connect with operators and kind of be the middleman. There's 2 different ways of going about it. They may raise a fund or an LLC. You invest in their LLC, and that LLC invests with the operator, so there's a layer of separation. The reason for that is they don't want the operator to then go out and start talking to these people, and then they don't have a way to generate business for that operator anymore. After the first deal, they could just go directly to that person, like the question said. So sometimes we'll do it that way. Others will just raise the money, get cut on the GP, and hope that the operator will continue to do right by them in the future, allow them to raise money, whether it's from the same investors or others. The reason you would invest through this person is, one, the middleman should be acting as a secondary set of eyes with potentially more experience than you that could say, hey, I like this deal enough to bring it to my investors. They should be looking through plenty of deals and not choosing every single one that comes across their desk if they're doing their job correctly. If they're not, they could just be raising money for every deal. So hopefully that person or group or company is creating that extra barrier, that extra layer, which may be worth compensating them for, especially if you're fairly new, less educated, maybe you don't have enough time to dig in deep. So that extra layer may help you instead of just an operator who may or may not know what they're doing. You don't have the time to really sit there and dig in and ask the proper questions that hopefully this person already has. Yes, that may come with more money, especially if you're investing in a fund or with that person's LLC and that LLC invests. So there's the layer of separation. If it's directly in, a lot of times what will happen is the operator will cut that person in on their side, and the fees aren't added on top of it, or at least that's what I've seen, or that's how I would structure it. The deal is the deal. If somebody takes the time to go raise the money, it shouldn't be an additional fee on top of it. It should be being brought in on their side. Now, if they're acting as an extra layer between, and their investors are investing in an LLC, which then invests, then I could see additional fees being put on top, or, instead of 100% increase, maybe it's, split the baby and it's 50% increase or things of that nature. So that's kind of how that works, and you really got to understand how each individual person is doing each individual deal. It may change from deal to deal, could change from company to company, so you really got to understand how that's working with each group and with each deal. Next question. I know the unicorn property offers both great cash flow as well as future appreciation, but how often does that actually happen? Other ideals would be low crime rate area as well, looking at small multifamily properties, 2 to 4 units. The answer for me is we buy all our deals with solid cash flow and solid forced appreciation. With multifamily and commercial real estate, your valuation is driven by your income and expenses, or your net operating income, which is what's left over after your expenses. So the more you can raise that, theoretically, the more your building is worth. Now, obviously, if cap rates take a tumble and they drop a lot, then you're kind of shit out of luck. But if all things being equal, if I can take my NOI from $200,000 to $400,000, or from $50,000 to $60,000, my property is now worth more. So when we look at deals, we always look for good cash flow, nothing crazy. If we can get into the double digits after a few years, that's fantastic, but usually we're in the high single digits. And then we look for that appreciation on top of it, so when we exit in 3 to 5 years, you are getting in the double-digit returns once we add in the sale proceeds on top of the cash flow. So in terms of the unicorn property that offers great cash flow and appreciation, I don't know that exists, because if I was to say great cash flow, I would say, double-digit returns, so 10, 11, 12, 13%. You're not really finding that in today's day and age in small multifamily properties. Unless you're buying something for such a discount to market, you may get great cash flow. Now, as well as great future appreciation, you could argue that with the discount to market, you have equity already built up, so that if you just brought it to market, you'd sell it for more and you would have great appreciation. But technically, I guess the property didn't appreciate. You just bought something for, 80%, 70% of value. You built in equity on your sale. You didn't get future appreciation. When you have a higher cap rate, if you're at an 8 cap, a 10 cap, things of that nature. I know they're talking about small multifamilies, 2 to 4 units, so it's a little different. It's more like residential. It's not as much value is created for every dollar you increase the NOI. If you have a 5 cap and a 10 cap, your extra dollar in net operating income is going to be double the amount of value at a 5 cap than it is a 10 cap. So just understanding that. So they're definitely unicorns if you're talking great, but definitely doable in the multifamily space to find something that does hit both buckets. And if you're conservative enough and find, deals that meet the criteria you're looking for, I do think it's achievable, just tougher and tougher to find as things go on. And the last question we're going to cover for tonight is also from Biggerpockest. Hi, can someone help me with valuing a property? I use actual income. Would you use actual vacancy as well? The deals I am looking at have low vacancy. If I buy the property and increase the rents, the vacancy would go up. My confusion is, 1, would I calculate based on actual current income and vacancy? 2, actual potential income and my projected vacancy? 3, there is even a school of thought to use market rents, then deduct 10% vacancy, then 50% expenses, and that should give you NOI rule of thumb. I search over and over on the internet and in books, but there's no definite answer. Any clarifications are appreciated. So I understand what he's talking about, because he's saying low vacancy. Maybe he means low occupancy. I would think he means low occupancy, because he says if I buy the property and increase the rents, the vacancy would go up. So I think he means it has low occupancy, and if I increase the rents, the vacancy. No, maybe he does mean. So I'm a little confused. to be perfectly honest, I read this question quick when I chose it, and now I'm backtracking a little bit. The deals I have looking at, I think I understand. He's saying because the deals are under market, let's say it's $100, $200 below market, there's a demand for that product, so the vacancy is very low, maybe 1-2%. But if you raise those rents, it may go to market, which may be 5, 6, 7, 8%. So what he's asking is, should I value the property on today's vacancy, or should I discount the vacancy to what it's going to be and value it based on that? I think that is the first question. The answer is it would be great to value it on a discounted vacancy to market, especially if they're doing better. But no seller's really going to do that. If you can find a seller and you can make that argument and they go, okay, that makes sense, you're probably going to get a really good deal, because most people, and especially if you go through a broker, are going to sell it based on actuals. The other thing, too, is if your rents are so low and the vacancy is low because of that, and you think you can come in and increase rents, I'm less concerned about the vacancy now. I'm more concerned about what the vacancy is in the future and backing into my offer and making sure I hit the return profile that I want to hit. His actual potential income and my projected vacancy, that's a great way to look at. Let's say you go in and you can't increase rents. That's a great way to look at downside, right? If I'm taking the actual income today, let's say, God forbid, I'm just totally wrong, you can't increase rents, take the vacancy I think the property will operate at and see how that looks. You can see how bad of a scenario that is. Do you break even? Do you cover your mortgage if you have one? Do you cover your expenses? I wouldn't use it from a valuation standpoint, especially if you're going from a broker, because I don't think it's just never going to happen. Someone's going to come in and do it on actual numbers and probably outbid you unless you're willing to go to a lower cap rate and they want to go to a higher cap rate. Whole nother story. So when valuing a property, use actual numbers. You're going to have a tough enough time dealing with brokers who will take numbers and adjust them to market if they're low, or on the expense side, if they're too high, they'll adjust them down to try to say, well, you can buy it at a 6 cap today if you take market numbers, but if you take their actual expenses, it's a 5 cap. So you're going to have enough of a battle as is, but using the numbers that it is today is the most fair way to do it. But sometimes you will see some give and take, especially if they're, one of our properties, the payroll number was about 80% higher than we were going to run it. So we were willing to pay a slightly lower cap rate than market to secure that property, just an example. And then number 3 was there's even a school of thought to use market rents, then deduct 10% vacancy, 50%. So the third one is not a good way to value the property today, but is a great way to value the property in the future. Except I would never use 10% vacancy is fine. Most markets are probably better than that anyway, so you'll probably be pretty safe. The 50% expense rule is just that, a rule of thumb. Should never be used to analyze a property. You have to know your expenses going in. But if you were doing back in the napkin and said, hey, they want $1 million. If I use these rents, 10% vacancy, 50% expenses, I get this NOI. It's worth $2 million in 3 years. I would go, okay, let me now take that. It sounds appealing. Let me dig in deeper, because I can buy it for $1 million, sell it for $2 million. I can double my money all cash. That's a home run deal. Let me find out more. But what may end up happening is you go in there and you find out that the trash bill you're stuck in is super high. You can't get out of it, so your expenses are really at 60%. So it's really a rule of thumb. If you took every single property across the United States, your expenses are probably going to be pretty damn close to 50%. But we personally have deals that run at 40, 45%. We have some that run at 55, 60%. So you really got to understand the individual property, the individual market, before you just dig in and assume that. You should never, ever, ever finalize your underwriting with a rule of thumb percentage when you go to buy a property. And that's it. So that's the 3 questions. Let's see, 14 minutes. So pretty good timing. Hopefully you guys like that. If you have any additional questions on anything I said, drop it in the comments below. I'm curious to see how this goes. This is going to be really raw. Hopefully I can make it better, more cultured, more refined in the future. But just wanted to do one, get it up there for you guys, and see what you think. Start doing a little bit more on YouTube as well. Maybe take some stuff, throw it up on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn too. So we'll see what happens. But let me know what you think. Would really appreciate it. If you happen to be here, I know this is really new, but would appreciate anybody subscribing to my channel. Hopefully do more as we go forward. And if you have any questions you want to see answered in the future, be sure to reach out to me on Instagram at GrenzigCRE. Hit me in the comments, hit me in the DMs, tell me what you want answered, and I'll use them going forward. Thanks for watching.